There are many things a person can lose in this world. Gold, position, reputation, even the comforts that once seemed permanent. Such losses are painful, yet they are not the greatest misfortune. The greatest loss is the loss of faith. For once a man ceases to believe in other people, he finds himself standing alone, no matter how crowded the world may be. Long ago, in the flourishing city of Luoyang, there lived a man named Zichun. He was born to wealth. He enjoyed every pleasure that wealth could provide, and he believed, as many fortunate men do, that the smiles surrounding him were signs of friendship. Then his fortune vanished. The smiles vanished with it. One by one, his companions disappeared. Doors that had once stood open were quietly closed. Voices that had once greeted him warmly fell silent. In time, Zichun came to a bitter conclusion. People did not love one another. They loved wealth. And wherever wealth went, affection followed. Standing alone upon a bridge at sunset, he believed he had finally understood the truth about humanity. Yet that evening, he met a mysterious old man. Their encounter would lead him to hidden treasure, unimaginable prosperity, and eventually a path far stranger than any he could have imagined. It would carry him beyond the desires of ordinary men, beyond wealth, beyond suffering, even to the threshold of immortality itself. But at the end of that journey, Zichun would be forced to answer a question far more difficult than any trial of gods or spirits. What is worth more than eternal life? And what does it truly mean to be human? This is the story of Zichun. Chapter 1. The Beggar on Tianjin Bridge. During the height of the Tang Dynasty, few cities rivaled the splendor of Luoyang. Merchants arrived from distant lands bearing silk, spices, precious stones, and rare treasures. Scholars debated poetry in tea houses. Officials rode through crowded avenues beneath colorful banners. To those who lived there, the city seemed eternal. Its wealth appeared limitless, its future secure. Among its citizens was a young man named Zichun. For many years, fortune smiled upon him. His father had left him a substantial inheritance, and Zichun enjoyed every comfort that wealth could provide. His home welcomed guests. His table was never empty. Friends surrounded him wherever he went. He spent generously and thought little of the future. Like many young men blessed by prosperity, he assumed prosperity would never end. But fortunes rarely vanish all at once. They disappear gradually. A poor decision here, an unnecessary expense there, a debt overlooked, an opportunity wasted. By the time Zichun recognized the danger, much of his inheritance had already slipped away. The rest soon followed. His servants departed. His household was sold. The invitations stopped coming. Before long, the man who had once entertained half of Luoyang found himself walking its streets alone. At first, he sought help from old companions. Surely friendship would survive misfortune. Surely the men who had shared his wine and laughter would not abandon him. Yet reality proved otherwise. Some offered polite excuses. Others avoided him entirely. A few pretended not to recognize him. The lesson was painful, not because he had become poor, because poverty revealed things he had never wished to see. One evening, after another day of disappointment, Zichun found himself standing upon Tianjin Bridge. The sun was setting behind the western walls. Golden light shimmered across the Luo River below. Citizens hurried home through the gathering dusk. Merchants closed their shops. Families lit lanterns for the evening meal. The city remained as beautiful as ever. Yet Zichun felt strangely separated from it. He leaned against the railing and watched the current move beneath him. Once he had crossed this bridge surrounded by acquaintances. Now no one greeted him. No one stopped to speak. The contrast was difficult to ignore. A bitter thought entered his mind. Perhaps people did not love one another as much as they loved success. Perhaps friendship followed wealth the way moths followed light. And when the light vanished, so did they. The thought lingered. The more he considered it, the more convincing it seemed. Lanterns began appearing throughout the city. One by one, warm lights emerged from homes and shops until the streets glittered beneath the approaching night. Zichun watched them silently. For the first time in his life, he wondered whether there was anything in the world truly worth believing in. Then he heard a voice beside him. "You seem troubled." The voice was calm, neither intrusive nor sympathetic, simply curious. Zichun turned. An old man stood nearby. His clothing was plain. His walking staff showed signs of long travel. Nothing about him appeared remarkable. Yet his eyes were unusually clear. They possessed a quiet steadiness that immediately drew attention. The old man regarded him for a moment. Then he smiled faintly. "What burden weighs so heavily upon your mind?" Ordinarily, Zichun would have ignored such a question. But something about the stranger made silence difficult. Perhaps it was the old man's calmness. Perhaps it was the loneliness he had carried for so long. Whatever the reason, Zichun found himself willing to answer. And so, as night settled over Luoyang and the river flowed beneath the bridge, he began telling the old stranger the story of his misfortune. A story that would soon change the course of his life forever. Chapter 2. Gold Beneath the Elm Tree. The old man listened without interruption. Zichun spoke of his inheritance, his years of careless spending, and the friends who had disappeared when his fortune was gone. When he finished, the old traveler remained silent for a moment. The lanterns of Luoyang reflected in the dark waters below. At last the old man asked, "If your wealth returned tomorrow, would your opinion of people change?" Zichun shook his head. "No." The answer came quickly. Too quickly. The old man noticed. "You are certain?" "I am." "Why?" Zichun looked out across the river. "Because I already know what would happen." The old man waited. The same people would return. A faint smile touched the old traveler's face. "Perhaps." "No," said Zichun. "Certainly." The old man studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "As you wish." The reply puzzled him. "As I wish?" "Tomorrow morning," said the old man, "leave the city through the north gate." The sudden change of subject caught Zichun off guard. The old man continued. "Follow the road until you find a large elm tree standing alone in the countryside. And then dig beneath it." For a moment, Zichun simply stared. The suggestion was absurd. A buried treasure belonged in stories told by wandering entertainers, not in the real world. Yet the old man's expression remained perfectly calm. "You expect me to believe that?" "I expect nothing." The old man rested both hands upon his staff. "I merely suggest that you look." Before Zichun could ask another question, the traveler turned and began walking away. His pace was unhurried. Within moments, he disappeared among the evening crowds. The encounter left Du Zichun strangely unsettled. The instructions were ridiculous, yet they lingered in his mind long after he left the bridge. That night, sleep came slowly. Again and again, he remembered the old man's clear eyes and quiet confidence. By dawn, curiosity had overcome skepticism. If nothing else, a morning walk would cost him little. So as the first light appeared above the eastern horizon, Du Zichun passed through the north gate and followed the road into the countryside. The city gradually disappeared behind him. Fields stretched across the landscape. Morning mist drifted above the earth. Birds called from distant trees. For nearly an hour he walked. Then he saw it. A great elm tree standing alone beside the road. Du Zichun stopped. The old man's description had been exact. A strange feeling stirred within him. Perhaps it was coincidence. Perhaps not. Approaching the tree, he examined the ground around its roots. Nothing appeared unusual. Still, having come this far, he decided to continue. Using a fallen branch, he began digging. The work was slow. Several times he considered abandoning the effort. Then the branch struck something solid. The sound echoed through the quiet morning. Du Zichun froze. Carefully, he cleared away the soil. A clay jar emerged from the earth. His pulse quickened. For a moment, he simply stared. Then he lifted the lid. Sunlight entered the jar. Gold. The vessel was filled with gold coins. Not a handful. Not a small fortune. A treasure large enough to change a man's life. Du Zichun reached inside and lifted one of the coins. It felt cold and heavy in his hand. Real. Entirely real. He looked around the empty countryside as though expecting someone to explain the miracle. No one appeared. Only the wind moved through the branches overhead. Slowly, he lowered the coin back into the jar. The old man had spoken the truth. The realization felt almost as astonishing as the treasure itself. For a long time, Du Zichun remained beneath the elm tree. The future now stood open before him. The hardships of recent months could be erased. Comfort could be restored. Security regained. The possibilities should have filled him with joy. Instead, another thought entered his mind. If wealth returned, would friendship return as well? The question followed him all the way back to Luoyang. By the time the city walls came into view, he already suspected the answer. Yet now, for the first time, he would have the chance to see it for himself. Chapter 3. The Return of Fortune. Fortune returned quickly. Within a few years, Du Zichun once again became a man of considerable wealth. He purchased a fine residence. Servants attended his household. His name regained the respect it had once enjoyed throughout Luoyang. To an outside observer, it might have appeared that his troubles had never existed at all. Yet Du Zichun remembered. He remembered the days when doors had closed before him. He remembered the excuses, the polite refusals, the familiar faces that had suddenly become strangers. Those memories remained long after his poverty ended, and so he watched carefully. As he had expected, people returned. Old companions reappeared. Former guests renewed forgotten friendships. Relatives who had shown little interest in him suddenly remembered family obligations. Everywhere he went, he encountered warm smiles and generous words. At first, he found the experience almost amusing. The pattern was too obvious to ignore. A man loses his fortune and becomes invisible. A man regains it and becomes important again. The transformation seemed like friendship than a change in the weather. Yet he welcomed everyone politely. There was little value in resentment. People behaved according to their nature. Perhaps he would have done the same in their place. Still, something had changed within him. Once he had accepted affection without question. Now he examined it, measured it, doubted it. That doubt followed him wherever he went. One evening he hosted a banquet. The hall filled with guests. Wine flowed freely. Musicians performed. Laughter echoed beneath the lantern light. It was precisely the sort of gathering he had once enjoyed. Yet as Zichun looked around the room, he felt strangely detached from it all. The men praising his generosity were often the same men who had disappeared during his misfortune. Their compliments sounded sincere. Perhaps they were sincere. That was what troubled him most. Human motives were rarely simple. A man might genuinely enjoy another's company while also benefiting from the relationship. Affection and self-interest often traveled together. Separating one from the other seemed nearly impossible. As the evening continued, Zichun found himself listening more than speaking, watching more than participating. The celebration felt distant, like a performance he had seen many times before. Later that night, after the guests departed, he remained alone in the banquet hall. The servants extinguished the lanterns one by one. Gradually, the room grew quiet. At last, only a single lamp remained burning. Its reflection trembled in a cup of unfinished wine. Zichun stared at it for a long time. He possessed everything he had once desired. Comfort, security, respect. Yet none of it brought the satisfaction he had imagined. The realization surprised him. For years he had blamed his unhappiness on poverty. Now poverty was gone. And still something remained unresolved. The days became months. The months became years. His fortune continued to grow, but his confidence in the world did not. Whenever he received praise, he wondered whether it would survive hardship. Whenever someone spoke of loyalty, he remembered how fragile loyalty could be. Gradually, a deeper question began to form. Perhaps the problem was not wealth. Perhaps the problem was desire itself. People spent their lives pursuing things they believed would bring happiness. Money, status, approval. And once those things were obtained, the satisfaction never seemed to last. Soon another desire appeared. Then another. The cycle never ended. The thought lingered in his mind. It returned during banquets, during business meetings, during quiet walks through the city. And each time it returned, it grew a little stronger. One autumn evening, Zichun found himself once again standing upon Tianjin Bridge. The Luo River flowed beneath him just as it had years before. Lanterns glowed throughout the city. The scene was beautiful. Yet beauty alone no longer seemed enough. Looking across the water, he realized something unsettling. The treasure beneath the elm tree had restored his fortune. But it had not restored his faith. Instead, it had revealed how little faith remained. For a long time, he stood there in silence. Then another thought entered his mind. Perhaps the answers he sought could not be found among wealth, friendship, or worldly success. Perhaps they lay somewhere beyond them. The idea seemed strange, yet strangely appealing. And though he did not yet know it, that thought would soon lead him back to the mysterious old man whose gift had changed the course of his life. Chapter 4. The Second Fall. The years passed. Outwardly, Zichun's life appeared prosperous. His household flourished. His reputation remained secure, yet the satisfaction he had once expected from wealth never arrived. The more he observed the world, the more restless he became. Men pursued riches only to fear losing them. Officials pursued power only to fear rivals. Merchants pursued success only to desire greater success. Everywhere he looked, he saw the same pattern. People spent their lives chasing one thing after another, yet few seemed content with what they possessed. At first, these thoughts merely troubled him. Eventually, they changed him. The pleasures he had once enjoyed began to lose their appeal. Banquets felt repetitive. Luxury seemed ordinary. Praise sounded hollow. Without realizing it, Zichun grew careless. He spent freely, invested without much concern, gave away large sums to those who asked. Gold flowed through his hands as though it possessed little value. His advisors occasionally warned him. Friends advised caution. Relatives urged restraint. Zichun listened politely, then ignored them. Part of him no longer cared whether the fortune remained. After all, what had wealth truly given him? Comfort, certainly, but wisdom? Peace? Trust? Those things seemed no closer than before. And so little by little the fortune diminished. Not in a single disaster. Not through betrayal. Simply through neglect. The process was slow enough that few noticed at first. Then one day it became impossible to ignore. The wealth was gone. Again. The servants departed. The household dissolved. The invitations ceased. And for the second time in his life, Zichun found himself alone. The experience should have been devastating. Instead, he felt something unexpected. Relief. The realization startled him. When he had first become poor, he had mourned what he lost. Now he found himself mourning very little. It was as though a burden had been lifted. Yet one thing remained. A lingering disappointment in the human world. The years had taught him much. Enough to know that wealth could not provide the answers he sought. Enough to know that poverty could not provide them either. Still, he did not know where those answers might be found. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the rooftops of Luoyang, Zichun returned to Tianjin Bridge. The river flowed quietly beneath him. The city glowed with lantern light. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything had changed. Years earlier, he had stood upon this bridge as a man abandoned by fortune. Now he stood there as a man abandoned by certainty. For a long time, he watched the water. Then he heard a familiar voice. "You seem thoughtful." Zichun turned. The old man stood beside him, just as he had years before. The same plain clothing, the same walking staff, the same calm eyes. A smile crossed Zichun's face. Not surprise, recognition. "I wondered if I would see you again." The old man nodded. "And now you have." For a few moments they stood together in silence. At last, Zichun spoke. "The treasure changed my life." "So it did. It also answered my question." The old man glanced toward him. "And what answer did you find?" Zichun considered carefully. "That wealth changes many things." The old man waited. "But not enough." A faint smile touched the traveler's lips. "No," he said, "not enough." The simplicity of the reply struck Zichun. It was as though the old man had known the conclusion from the very beginning. Perhaps he had. The river continued its journey beneath the bridge. The evening air grew cooler. Finally, Zichun spoke the thought he had carried for years. I no longer wish to spend my life pursuing wealth. The old man remained silent. Nor status, nor admiration. He looked out across the city. I am tired of wanting things that never satisfy. For the first time, the old man seemed genuinely interested. What is it that you want, then? The question lingered. Zichun searched for the answer. When it came, it felt strangely simple. Freedom. The old man studied him carefully. Freedom from what? Desire. The reply emerged without hesitation. From fear. From disappointment. From the endless cycle that governs ordinary life. Silence followed. The old man looked toward the darkening sky. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a different weight. A quiet authority Zichun had not noticed before. Few people reached that conclusion. The city lights shimmered upon the river. Zichun felt an unexpected stillness settle over him. Then he asked the question that had waited for years. Who are you? The old man smiled. My name is Tieguanzi. The name meant little to him. Yet the moment it was spoken, something felt different. The old traveler no longer seemed like an ordinary man. He seemed older, wiser, as though he belonged to another world entirely. Tieguanzi rested both hands upon his staff. You seek freedom. I do. Then there is a path. Zichun's pulse quickened. What path? The old man looked toward the distant mountains beyond the city. The path that leads beyond ordinary desires. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Zichun asked quietly, Will you teach me? Tieguanzi's eyes met his own. The old master considered him for a long time. Finally, he nodded. If your resolve is genuine. And as the last light faded from the sky above Luoyang, Zichun realized that the true journey of his life was only now beginning. Chapter 5. The old man returns. The desire remained. At first, Zichun dismissed it as a passing mood. Everyone experiences periods of dissatisfaction. Even the fortunate. Especially the fortunate. Too much comfort often leaves a person with nothing to think about except the meaning of comfort itself. Yet the feeling did not fade. Weeks passed. Then months. Still, it remained. Whenever he attended banquets, he found himself watching rather than participating. Whenever guests praised his success, he wondered how long their admiration would survive misfortune. Whenever he walked through the crowded streets of Luoyang, he felt strangely detached from the life unfolding around him. The city had once fascinated him. Now it seemed caught in an endless cycle. People pursued wealth. Those who gained it feared losing it. Those who lost it struggled to regain it. Those who possessed neither envied those who did. Generation after generation, the pattern repeated. The realization left him restless. One evening, unable to endure the noise of another celebration, Zichun left his residence and wandered through the city, alone. The streets were quiet. Most households had already retired for the night. Only a few lanterns remained burning. Without consciously intending to do so, he found himself walking toward Tianjin Bridge. The sight of the bridge stirred old memories. Years earlier, he had stood here as a ruined man. A man abandoned by fortune. A man convinced he understood the nature of humanity. It was here that he had first met the mysterious traveler. The thought had scarcely crossed his mind when he saw a familiar figure standing beside the railing. An old man, a walking staff, a calm expression. For an instant, Zichun wondered whether he was imagining things. Then the figure turned. The same clear eyes met his own. The years seemed to vanish. Nothing about the old man appeared altered. Not his posture, not his expression, not even the faint smile that touched his lips. "Have you been well?" the old man asked. The question sounded perfectly ordinary. Yet Zichun found himself laughing. Not because anything was amusing, because the moment felt impossible. "I have searched for you." The old man nodded. "I know." "You know?" "I know many things." The answer was offered so casually that it might have sounded arrogant coming from anyone else. From him, it sounded merely factual. Zichun studied the old man carefully. For years, he had wondered about the stranger's identity. Now that he stood before him again, the mystery felt even deeper. "Who are you?" The old man rested both hands upon his staff. "A traveler." "I know that much." The old man smiled. "Do you?" For a moment, neither spoke. The river flowed quietly beneath the bridge. At last, Zichun said, "The treasure." "Yes." "Why did you give it to me?" The old man looked toward the dark water. "Because you needed it." The answer seemed incomplete. "That cannot be the only reason." "No." The old man agreed. "It is not." Silence followed. Then he asked a question of his own. "Did wealth make you happy?" Zichun considered the matter honestly. "It solved many problems." "But did it make you happy?" The answer came more slowly. "No." The old man nodded as though he had expected nothing else. "And poverty?" Zichun smiled faintly. "No." "Then perhaps you have learned something valuable." The words lingered in the night air. Zichun looked across the city. Countless lanterns glowed beyond the river. From a distance, Luoyang appeared peaceful, beautiful, almost dreamlike. Yet beneath that beauty he now saw endless striving, endless longing, the pursuit of things that never seemed capable of satisfying those who possessed them. "I am tired," he said quietly. The old man did not appear surprised. "Of what?" The question proved difficult to answer. Finally, Zichun spoke. "I am tired of wanting things." The old man remained silent. "I wanted wealth." He gestured toward the city. "When I lost it, I suffered." The old man nodded. "When I regained it, I feared losing it." "Naturally." "I wanted friendship." The words came more slowly now. "When I had companions, I questioned their motives. When I had none, I mourned their absence." Again the old man nodded. "And now?" Zichun looked toward the stars emerging above the rooftops. For a long time he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded different, calmer, more certain. "I wish to leave all of it behind." The old man studied him carefully. The expression in his eyes grew thoughtful. "Leave what behind?" "Everything." The answer surprised even Zichun. Yet once spoken, it felt undeniably true. The pursuit of wealth, the pursuit of status, the pursuit of approval, the endless cycle of desire and disappointment. He drew a slow breath. "I have spent years observing people." The old man waited. "The rich are unhappy because they fear loss. The poor are unhappy because they desire gain. Those in power fear losing power. Those without power seek it. No one seems content. The old man remained silent for several moments. Then he asked, "And what do you seek instead?" The answer emerged almost as a whisper. "Freedom." The word seemed to hang above the river. The old man looked at him for a long time. Long enough that Zichun began to wonder whether he had spoken foolishly. At last the old man smiled. A different smile than before. One touched by something resembling approval. Few people arrive at that desire. The remark startled him. Why? Because most never look beyond the next thing they want. The old man straightened. For the first time, there was a subtle change in his bearing. Something immense seemed to reveal itself behind his ordinary appearance. Not physically, spiritually. The sensation was difficult to describe. Zichun suddenly felt as though he were standing before someone far older than he had imagined. Someone who belonged to a world larger than his own. The old man's voice grew quiet. "Do you know who I am?" Zichun shook his head. The old man turned his gaze toward the stars. "My name is Tieguanzi." The name meant nothing to most people. Yet something in the way it was spoken caused a chill to pass through Zichun. Not fear, recognition, as though a hidden truth had finally stepped into the light. The old man continued, "I have spent many years studying the way." His eyes remained fixed upon the heavens, long enough to learn that most human desires lead nowhere. The river flowed beneath them. The city remained silent. Then Zichun asked the question that had already formed within his heart. "Can such freedom be learned?" Tieguanzi looked at him. "It can." The answer came without hesitation. A powerful stillness settled over the bridge. Zichun felt his pulse quicken. "What must I do?" For a moment, the old man said nothing. Then he replied, "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you truly wish to leave the world behind." The words carried no challenge, no threat, only truth. And as Zichun stood beneath the night sky, listening to the river below, he realized that his life had arrived at a crossroads far greater than the one he had faced beneath the elm tree. For wealth had changed his circumstances. But the path now opening before him promised something far more dangerous. It offered the possibility of changing himself. Chapter 6. The Trial of Silence. Several weeks after their meeting on Tianjin Bridge, Zichun left Luoyang. He told few people of his plans. There seemed little point. Most would not understand. Many would attempt to discourage him. Others would assume he had lost his senses. Perhaps they would have been correct. To abandon wealth voluntarily appeared foolish to those who spent their lives pursuing it. Yet Zichun felt no hesitation. The dissatisfaction that had haunted him for years had finally revealed its source. He no longer wished to improve his place within the world. He wished to understand whether there existed something beyond it. And so he followed Tieguanzi. They traveled far from the great cities, far from crowded marketplaces and government roads. The landscape gradually changed. Villages became scarce. The cultivated fields disappeared. Mountains rose around them. Ancient forests covered the slopes like dark green oceans. The further they traveled, the quieter the world became. Eventually, they arrived at a remote valley hidden among towering peaks. There were no houses, no temple, No signs of ordinary human life. Only stone, wind, water, and trees. The place possessed a profound stillness, as though time itself moved differently there. For several days, Tieguanzi spoke little. Zichun asked no questions. The silence felt natural, perhaps even necessary. At last, one evening, as the sun disappeared behind the mountains, the old master led him to a broad stone platform overlooking the valley. The sky above burned with fading gold. Clouds drifted slowly across the horizon. Tieguanzi stopped. "This is where your training begins." Zichun bowed. "I am ready." The old man regarded him calmly. Many have said those words, and many have failed. The statement carried no judgment, only fact. Tieguanzi continued. "You seek freedom from desire." "Yes." "You seek freedom from fear." "Yes." "You seek freedom from the illusions of the world." "I do." The old master nodded. "Then you must first learn whether your mind truly belongs to you." A faint breeze moved across the stone platform. The valley below grew darker as evening settled. Finally, Tieguanzi spoke the condition that would determine everything that followed. "Whatever happens, you must remain silent." Zichun frowned slightly. "Silent?" "Completely." The old master's eyes never left his own. "No matter what you see, no matter what you hear, no matter what suffering you endure, you must not speak a single word." The simplicity of the command surprised him. "That is all?" Tieguanzi's expression did not change. "That is all." Yet something in his voice suggested otherwise, as though those simple words concealed a difficulty beyond imagining. Zichun nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" The old master looked toward the darkening sky. "Many men believe they possess strength, until strength is required." For a moment, silence returned. Then Tieguanzi stepped back. "The trial begins now." Night fell. The mountains disappeared into darkness. The stars emerged one by one above the valley. Zichun sat upon the stone platform exactly as instructed. Hours passed. Nothing happened. The wind moved through the trees. An owl called somewhere in the distance. The world seemed peaceful, almost disappointingly so. Gradually, his thoughts began to wander. Perhaps the challenge was simply patience. Perhaps the purpose of the exercise was to calm the mind. The possibility seemed reasonable. Then he heard a growl. Low, deep, close. His eyes opened. At the edge of the darkness stood a tiger. Its body appeared enormous. Moonlight gleamed upon its eyes. The animal stared directly at him. Another growl followed. The sound vibrated through the night air. Instinct urged him to retreat, to run, to do something. Instead, he remained seated. The tiger advanced. One step, then another. Its muscles shifted beneath striped fur. Its jaws opened slightly. Sharp teeth reflected the moonlight. Zichun felt his heart pounding. The creature drew closer, closer still, until it stood only a few feet away. Its breath was visible. Its eyes burned like living fire. For an instant, fear threatened to overwhelm him. Then the tiger vanished. Not gradually, instantly. One moment it existed. The next, it was gone. The mountains remained unchanged. The stars remained unchanged. Only the tiger had disappeared. Zichun exhaled slowly. His pulse gradually settled. The trial had begun. The following night brought wolves, dozens of them. Their howls echoed through the valley. Shadows moved among the trees. Yellow eyes appeared in the darkness. The pack circled him for hours, yet he remained silent. Eventually, they vanished as completely as the tiger. After that came stranger things. Serpents large enough to swallow a man. Demons with twisted faces. Creatures that seemed drawn from nightmares rather than nature. Each appeared. Each threatened. Each disappeared. Day followed day. Night followed night. The visions grew increasingly terrifying. Yet Zichun endured them. At first he resisted through determination. Later through habit. Eventually through something deeper. He began to understand that fear itself possessed limits. No emotion could sustain its intensity forever. Even terror exhausted itself. Once that realization took root, the apparitions lost some of their power. They still frightened him, but they no longer controlled him. Tieguanzi observed everything. He offered neither praise nor criticism. His silence revealed nothing. Then the trial changed. The monsters disappeared. Human beings took their place. One morning, Zichun found himself standing within a crowded city. The transition felt completely real. The mountain valley was gone. The stone platform was gone. Only the city remained. People moved through busy streets. Merchants shouted. Children laughed. Life unfolded all around him. Among the crowd, he recognized familiar faces. Friends from years past. Former companions. People he had known in Luoyang. They greeted him warmly. They invited him to join them. They spoke of comfort, success, pleasure, everything he had once valued. The temptation surprised him. He had expected fear, not nostalgia. For a moment, he almost forgot the trial entirely. The city felt so convincing, the voices so familiar. Then he remembered and remained silent. The scene dissolved, like mist before sunlight. Again he found himself upon the mountain. Again the illusion had failed, but greater challenges awaited. One evening, armed soldiers appeared. Without explanation, they seized him, bound his hands, dragged him away. This vision felt more vivid than any before. The ropes bit into his wrists. The soldiers shouted accusations. He was called a criminal, a traitor, an enemy of the state. Crowds gathered to watch. Some jeered. Others demanded punishment. No matter how fiercely he protested within his own mind, no sound escaped his lips. He remembered the command. Remain silent. The trial continued. A judgment was pronounced. A sentence delivered. Death. The crowd roared its approval. Zichun was led to an execution ground. The executioner raised his blade. For the first time since entering the mountains, genuine uncertainty entered his heart. What if this was no illusion? What if death itself awaited him? The blade descended. Darkness followed. Then morning arrived. And he found himself once again seated upon the stone platform beneath the sky. Alive, unharmed, silent. Far below, clouds drifted through the valley. The mountains stood unchanged. Yet Zichun understood something now that he had not understood before. The trial was not testing his courage, nor his endurance, nor even his obedience. It was testing his attachment to fear, to comfort, to reputation, to life itself. And though he did not yet know it, the most difficult test remained ahead. For there are things more powerful than fear, things more persuasive than desire. And before his training ended, he would be forced to confront the strongest bond of all. Chapter 7. A Cry in Hell. By now, Zichun had lost all sense of time. Days and nights no longer carried the certainty they once possessed. The mountains remained. The stone platform remained. Tieguanzi remained. Everything else seemed fluid, uncertain. Dream and reality had become difficult to distinguish. Yet one thing remained unchanged: his silence. No matter what appeared before him, he had spoken no word. Not during fear, not during temptation, not even when faced with death itself. The old master offered no praise, no sign of approval. The trial simply continued. And so Zichun endured. One evening the sky darkened with unusual speed. A cold wind swept across the mountains. The temperature fell sharply. Clouds gathered overhead until even the stars disappeared. For reasons he could not explain, Zichun sensed that something had changed. The air itself felt different, heavier, as though the world were holding its breath. Then the mountain vanished. The transformation occurred so suddenly that there was no opportunity for surprise. One moment he sat upon the stone platform. The next he stood somewhere else entirely. The ground beneath his feet was black. The sky glowed with a dim crimson light. An unpleasant odor filled the air. Smoke drifted across a barren landscape. In the distance came the sounds of weeping and screams, countless screams. Zichun understood immediately. He was no longer in the world of the living. He had entered hell. The realization brought neither panic nor astonishment. By now he had witnessed too many wonders, too many horrors. He merely observed and remained silent. Figures moved through the darkness. Some appeared human. Others did not. Strange beings carried iron instruments. Chains rattled. Flames flickered in the distance. The cries of suffering rose and fell like waves upon a stormy sea. The scene stretched endlessly in every direction. A kingdom of punishment. A landscape built from regret. Still, Zichun remained silent. Fear had lost much of its power over him. The trial had taught him that. Hell itself, however terrible, was simply another obstacle, another illusion, another test. Or so he believed. Then he saw them. At first they appeared only as distant figures among the crowd of suffering souls. Two elderly people, bent with exhaustion, clothed in rags, their heads lowered beneath invisible burdens. Something about them seemed familiar. Zichun looked more carefully. The world around him suddenly faded. The screams, the smoke, the flames, all of it became distant. For the two figures were his father and mother. He felt his breath catch. His father looked older than he remembered, more fragile. The years seemed to weigh heavily upon him. His mother appeared exhausted. Yet even through suffering, her face retained a quiet gentleness. A gentleness Zichun remembered from childhood. The sight struck him with unexpected force. For years he had spoken of humanity in abstract terms. Friendship, society, desire, disappointment. Now none of those ideas mattered. Only two people existed. His father, his mother. A terrible unease entered his heart. Still, he remained silent. The command echoed within him. Whatever happens, do not speak. The punishment began. Dark figures surrounded the old couple. Commands were shouted. The two were forced forward. They stumbled, fell, rose again. The scene was unbearable to watch. Yet Zichun endured it. He had endured worse, or so he told himself. The trial had tested fear. Surely this was simply another variation. Another attempt to provoke emotion. Another illusion. Then a whip cracked through the air. His mother flinched. The sound echoed across the wasteland. Again the whip fell. Again. And again. Each blow landed with merciless precision. Zichun felt something tighten within his chest. The old woman did not cry out. That made the sight even more painful. She simply endured, quietly, patiently, the way mothers endure countless hardships throughout their lives. His father attempted to move toward her. The guards struck him back. The old man fell heavily to the ground. Still, Zichun remained silent. He closed his eyes. The screams continued. He opened them again. The scene remained unchanged. Another blow. Another. His mother's strength appeared to be fading. Yet she still uttered no complaint. No accusation. No plea for mercy. Only suffering. Endless suffering. For the first time since beginning the trial, Zichun felt his resolve weaken. The command remained clear, remained silent. The path he sought lay beyond silence, beyond attachment, beyond ordinary human emotion. Tieguanzi had warned him. Everything depended upon this. Everything. Yet another voice had begun speaking within him. A quieter voice, an older one, the voice of memory. He remembered being a child. He remembered illness, long nights when his mother had remained beside his bed. He remembered her hand upon his forehead, her voice, her patience, her love. Love given freely, without expectation, without reward. A form of devotion unlike anything he had encountered elsewhere in life. The memory cut deeper than any blade. Another crack of the whip. His mother staggered. For an instant she raised her head. Their eyes met. Across the vastness of hell itself, their eyes met. And something happened. She recognized him. No words were exchanged. None were necessary. A mother knows her child, even in suffering, even in death, even in hell. The look upon her face contained no reproach, no demand, no request for rescue, only concern. Concern for him, the same concern she had shown throughout his life. The realization shattered something within him. For years he had searched for a truth greater than wealth, greater than friendship, greater than worldly ambition. Now, in the depths of hell, he found it. Not in philosophy, not in immortality, but in love. Selfless, enduring, unconditional. The whip rose again. His mother swayed, and before he could stop himself, before thought could intervene, before discipline could regain control, a cry burst from his lips. "Mother!" The word echoed through hell. A single word. Nothing more. Yet the moment it left his mouth, everything changed. The darkness shattered. The flames vanished. The screams ceased. The crimson sky dissolved into light. The entire world collapsed like a dream at dawn. And suddenly Zichun found himself seated once more upon the stone platform high in the mountains. The valley lay below. The sky above was clear. Morning sunlight touched the distant peaks. Everything was peaceful. Everything was real. Or seemed real. Tieguanzi stood before him. The old master's expression was calm, unreadable. For a long moment, neither spoke. Zichun lowered his head. The weight of failure settled heavily upon him. After everything he had endured, after all the trials, he had failed. Because of a single word, a single cry, a single moment of weakness. The mountain wind moved softly through the trees. At last Tieguanzi spoke. "Why did you call out?" Zichun closed his eyes. The answer came easily. Because it was the truth. Because she was my mother. Silence followed. The mountains waited. The sky remained vast and empty above them. And though Zichun did not yet know it, the answer he had given would prove more important than every trial that had come before. Epilogue. The treasure of being human. The mountain remained silent. A gentle wind moved across the valley below. Far above, white clouds drifted through the morning sky. For a long time, neither man spoke. Zichun kept his eyes lowered. The weight of failure pressed heavily upon him. Years of searching, months of training, countless trials, all brought to ruin by a single word. He had sought freedom from attachment, freedom from desire, freedom from the sorrows of the human world. And when the final test arrived, he had failed. The conclusion seemed unavoidable. At last, Tieguanzi broke the silence. "You believe the trial is over?" Zichun slowly raised his head. The old master's expression revealed nothing. "I failed." The words came quietly. There is no need to pretend otherwise. Tieguanzi studied him for a moment. Then, to Zichun's surprise, the old man smiled. A small smile, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakably genuine. "Tell me," he said, "what exactly did you fail?" Zichun frowned. The question seemed absurd. "I spoke." "Yes." "I was instructed to remain silent." "And yet you spoke." The old master nodded. "That much is true." The valley felt quiet once more. Then Tieguanzi asked, "Would you have remained silent if a stranger had suffered before you?" Zichun considered the question. Perhaps. He could not be certain. "What about a friend?" Again, he hesitated. "I do not know." Tieguanzi's gaze remained steady. "What about your mother?" The memory returned immediately. The whip, the suffering, the look in her eyes. No hesitation remained. "No." The answer was firm. "I could not." "Why?" Zichun looked toward the distant mountains. For the first time, he struggled to find words. Eventually, he spoke. "Because I loved her." The old master nodded, as though hearing something he had expected all along. "And what is love?" The question seemed simple. Yet it reached deeper than any challenge of the trial. Zichun thought carefully. At last he answered, "To place another person before oneself." The old man smiled again. A rare answer. Neither spoke for several moments. The wind moved softly through the pines. Somewhere below, water flowed among the rocks. Finally, Tieguanzi said, "When we first met, you had lost faith in humanity." Zichun lowered his gaze. "Yes. You believed people cared only for wealth. Most seemed to. And because of that, you wished to leave the human world behind." The words contained no accusation, only truth. Zichun nodded. Tieguanzi continued, "You searched for something higher than humanity." His eyes turned toward the sky. Something beyond desire, beyond suffering, beyond attachment. The old master paused. "And in the end, where did you find it?" The answer arrived before Zichun consciously formed it. "In my mother." The old man inclined his head. "Exactly." The simplicity of the reply struck him with unexpected force. For years, he had searched in distant places. In wealth, in status, in friendship, in solitude, in spiritual discipline. He had crossed mountains seeking wisdom. Yet the truth had been present long before his journey began, hidden within the ordinary acts of love and sacrifice that he had once overlooked. Tieguanzi rested both hands upon his staff. "The trial was never meant to destroy your humanity." Zichun looked up. "It wasn't?" "No." The old master's eyes reflected the morning light. "It was meant to reveal whether any humanity remained." The words settled over the valley like sunlight after a storm. Suddenly, countless memories seemed to align. The treasure beneath the elm tree, the return of wealth, the disappointment that followed, the years of questioning, the mountain, the trials. Every step had led to this moment. Tieguanzi continued, "Many people become disappointed in the world." His voice remained calm. "Some respond with anger, some with bitterness, some withdraw from others entirely." The old man looked directly at him. "You chose another path." Zichun listened carefully. "You searched for a truth beyond human weakness." The old master smiled faintly. "And you found it in the very thing you wished to escape." A long silence followed. This time, it felt different. Not empty, peaceful. For the first time in many years, Zichun felt no desire to argue with the world. No desire to judge it. No desire to flee from it. Human beings were imperfect. They always would be. Some loved wealth. Some sought power. Some betrayed trust. Yet compassion existed as well. Sacrifice existed. Love existed. Not everywhere. Not always. But enough. Enough to give meaning to the rest. The realization filled him with a quiet gratitude he had never known before. At length, Tieguanzi turned toward the mountain path. "Our time together is finished." The words carried neither sadness nor ceremony, only certainty. Zichun rose to his feet. For a moment, he considered asking another question. There were so many things he still did not understand. Yet somehow the need had vanished. The answers that mattered most had already been given. He bowed deeply. When he straightened, the old master was watching him with the same calm expression he had worn on Tianjin Bridge years before. Then Tieguanzi nodded once and began walking down the mountain path. Zichun watched until the old man disappeared among the pines. The valley grew quiet once more. At last he turned toward the distant world below. Beyond the mountains lay roads, villages, cities, ordinary people living ordinary lives. The very world he had once wished to abandon. Now it appeared differently. Not because the world had changed, because he had. The journey had not made him immortal. It had given him something far more valuable. The understanding that the highest treasures are not found beneath the earth, nor hidden in distant mountains, nor granted by sages. They are found within the human heart. With that realization, Zichun began the long walk home. The morning sun shone upon the path before him, and for the first time in many years, he walked not in search of something, but in peace. The end.